Emotions, I always say, are not the problem. It's our reactions to them. That's what creates a lot of tension and conflict and fearful and negative thinking. So the way emotions can support you is when you give yourself permission, like you just said, to process them. When they are left unprocessed in your body, they literally sit inside of you, and it's kind of like pollution.
This is Your Kick-Ass Life podcast, episode number 350 with guest Sherianna Boyle.
This is the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast with Andrea Owen, a no BS guide to self-help and badassery. Because ladies, let's face it, life's too short for it to not kick ass. And here's your host, the girl who serves it up straight with a side of crazy, Andrea Owen.
Hey there, ass kickers. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. Today, I have a guest coming on talking about emotions. I met Sherianna at an event in the very beginning of March and talked to her, learned about her work, knew I had to have her come on and talk to you all about her work. And she will talk a little bit about a method that she created called the Cleanse Method. It's an acronym. We'll talk about it in the show. And afterwards, she was gracious enough to shoot me a text message. And she's like, hey, if you want me to take you through the method, I'm happy to do that. So I hopped on the phone with her. She took me through it. It was such an extraordinary experience. I cannot say enough how important it is. I mean, I've talked about it a lot. To actually do things, methodology, take action on learning different ways to feel your feelings. I think it's something that sometimes it feels like it should be innate, but we live in a culture where a lot of us have anxiety. A lot of us were never taught how to do this. It seems very kind of esoteric and out there. And what does it actually look like? And I love learning different ways to do this, different tools to do this. So I'm excited for you to have this opportunity to hear about her work. Also, if you are looking for some extra support, we have some openings for private coaching with my lovely and amazing, talented, fantastic associate coach, Liz, over here at Your Kick-Ass Life. So head on over to yourkickasslife.com/coaching to fill out an application, and we will be in touch to see if it is a fantastic fit for you to work with Liz. All right, let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Sherianna Boyle is a best-selling author of 8 books, including her latest, Emotional Detox, 7 Steps to Releasing Toxicity and Energizing Joy, and her new book, Emotional Detox for Anxiety. She is an adjunct psychology professor, former school psychologist, founder of Emotional Detox Coaching, Cleanse Yoga, and the Cleanse Method. Her work has been featured in Psychology Today, Prevention Magazine, First Woman, Wellbeing Magazine, Yoga Journal, and more. Sherianna has presented at renowned retreat centers such as Kripalu Yoga and Health Center, educating professionals and individuals on the power of processing your emotions. So without further ado, here is Sherianna. Sherianna, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited.
I knew that I had to have you on the show, both when I met you and also because the topic that you talk about, I thought to myself, okay, literally everyone that listens to my podcast needs your help. Because both two things that you talk about that I love to learn more about and even do my own personal work is emotions. And if anyone's listened to this podcast for more than, a handful of episodes, they probably have heard me talking about that I like to say that I was emotionally illiterate for a long time. And it wasn't until I started to learn to feel my own feelings and process them and honor them and all of those great things that I truly started to heal, as well as the topic of anxiety, which I know that a lot of my listeners struggle with that. So I want to jump in because we have so much that we need to talk about. And can I just start by asking you, how can emotions, maybe for the skeptic out there, but how can emotions support someone to have their best, most kick-ass life?
Well, emotions, I always say, are not the problem. It's our reactions to them. That's what creates a lot of tension and conflict and fearful and negative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So the way emotions can support you is when you give yourself permission, like you just said, to process them. When they are left unprocessed in your body, they literally sit inside of you, and it's kind of like pollution or perhaps undigested food. If you had a piece of undigested food, you would get bloated. You would be uncomfortable. You'd be like, oh, I got to unbutton my pants. I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't move.
Mm-hmm. Where are my leggings?
And you're distracted and you're preoccupied and you're just like, oh, and you get down on yourself. It's the same thing with emotions, that when you just sort of when you ignore them or disregard them or avoid them, they sit inside of you and they can't nourish you like they could if you just give yourself a chance to fully process them.
Yeah. I'm super curious. I'm going to kind of take a step back here. I didn't have a chance to talk to you about this when we met. We didn't have enough time to really dive in, but how did you come to do this work? Like, did you have a sort of come to Jesus moment with yourself, or did you always know from a young age that this is like the kind of body / wellness / spiritual work that you'd be doing? How did you get here?
I believe that I've always been spiritual. I was reading Marianne Williamson when I was 15 years old.
Okay, you're one of those people.
Yeah.
Your read fascinates me.
I remember when I was only maybe, I think I was 13, I had a babysitting job. And on the way to the babysitting job, I would pass a church. I'd walk. And I remember going into the church and sitting in the back pew. And it was a Baptist church, which I wasn't raised Baptist, but I was always very drawn to just the vibration and the feeling of it. Mm-hmm. So, and my parents were great. They were like, fine, you want to go to a Baptist church? Go to a Baptist church.
Well, that's good that they just kind of let you explore your own spirituality.
My mother, I attribute a lot to her. She was always handing me books, Marianne Williamson, Leo Biscaglia. She was like, okay, read this, read that, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So going back to the topic, and you have 8 books. Is that correct?
Yes, soon to be 9th. I have one out there.
Busy lady. Yeah. Okay, the one I want to talk to you about more specifically is I believe that your latest. I was trying to figure this out before we got started. Emotional Detox for Anxiety. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and these links will be in the show notes, everyone. And I am such a huge believer in this work, having been someone who was diagnosed with anxiety disorder in 2003, as well as panic disorder. And also, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the podcast. Maybe I told you this when we were having lunch together. I've had chronic hypertension since I was 17, was medicated in my 20s. It got really bad throughout my 2 pregnancies. And then when I got sober in 2011, we moved to North Carolina. I did a lot of my own internal emotional work, shame stuff, like you name it. I was doing a lot of it. And then suddenly my blood pressure got better. And I have not had a high reading probably in 6 years, and I've not been medicated in that time. So, could be a coincidence, emoji shrug over here, or could be the fact that I processed a lot of my emotions that were still living in my body, like you said, like the undigested food, and the anxiety and the high blood pressure went away. So I'm not a doctor, people. Please don't stop taking your medication or your anxiety medication. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, can you talk to us just generally about even just the title of your book? It excites me so much. Emotional Detox for Anxiety. What does that mean?
So emotional detox, when I talk about that, so we have the core book, Emotional Detox, and then Emotional Detox for Anxiety followed that book. And so the emotional detox is based on a certain mindset. It's a foundation. I think of it like the home. And then within that book is 7 steps that I put in the acronym of CLEANSE that you move through. It's a daily practice, which allows you to process your emotions. Now, part of processing is you have to know what you're processing. So you might have an idea of that right now. Like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling this today. And I think I'll process that. Yeah, I think I'll let myself process this emotion. But what I find with this formula of cleanse, that it runs super deep. Mm-hmm. And it really allows you not to just process emotions that are coming up right now, but also things that have happened in the past, as well as emotions that you might be actually picking up from other people. Because let's face it, anxiety can be very contagious.
Right.
Right. And if you grew up with an anxious mother or father, or you were just a kid in a classroom that was feeling your teacher's anxiety, you were taking that all in and not knowing what to do with it. And a lot of people kind of bury it and cover it up. And then it manifests. And so when you talk about your hypertension and the blood pressure and all this stuff, for me, what comes up is that really was a manifestation of suppressed emotions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it was ancestral also that I was taking on as my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think a lot of us do. You know, we carry it on our shoulders, and we are kind of, quote unquote, the chosen ones, like Harry Potter, to be able to heal from it and not just heal ourselves, but I think heal our families as well. Can be.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So that's what emotional detox is. It's that 7 steps of cleanse built on a foundation. And in that foundation, there's some belief systems that I put in place. And one thing that I say is all emotions are good so long as you process them.
Can you say that again in case people missed it?
Yeah. So, and that's why I had to do this to be able to process. I had to change the mindset. All emotions are good when you process them.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
So there's no bad emotion.
No negative emotions.
There's no negative emotion. Here's the other thing that emotional detox premise is based on, that there's only, in my world, there's only one emotion, and that is love. Everything else is a reaction.
Okay. Please say more about that.
It's
because I'm like raising an eyebrow over here. I was like, okay.
I knew you would, and that's okay. And I know it might be a little different than what people are used to. I'm just telling you, I went my first core book, Emotional Detox. I actually went on an emotional detox because I went through a breakdown, and it was out of my control. And I was researching emotions at the time. I had already pitched Emotional Detox. I had already been picked up by Simon & Schuster. Everything, my world was grand. And then I was hit with catastrophic news.
So personal life turned upside down.
Crisis, right?
Okay.
So at that time, I said, shit, I'm not just researching anymore for other people. This is about my own journey. And I put myself on emotional detox. So when I say this, I'm not trying to be a smarty pants or like I know more than other people. What I'm saying is this is what helped me heal. I had to change the way I viewed emotions.
Okay.
In order to process them. So emotional detox says there's only one emotion, and that is love. Everything else is a reaction. And that is the way I kept myself focused and centered on this practice every single day. I would say, Sherry, honey, darling, that's me. I call a lot of my friends call me Sherry. I'd say you're reacting. Okay. You're not in love. So this means you have something coming up to be cleansed. Something in you is coming up to be healed. And in the beginning, it was rampant. It felt like that's all I was focusing on, but that's what I needed to focus on. I needed it to be a priority for a while. And then over time, it becomes, you create space, and it's still a practice, but you're not being hit with a bajillion triggers. So it then turns into a practice of grounded and centeredness, and you just connect to it because it feels so damn good, and it actually feels more like you.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea.
And that love is who we are, really.
Yes.
We are pure love. We are not all that other stuff.
It's interesting. Like, I get curious around thinking about maybe a woman who has experienced trauma. And like, let's just say the example, like the Me Too movement, like maybe she's seeing what's going on, thinking about her own stories, her own Me Too stories.
Getting triggered. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And then she experiences anxiety around that and wants to process the emotions. So can you speak to that and how, what do you do in your work? And then I'm also curious, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it. Do you consider all of those emotions love? And if so, what's the perspective on that? I think is my question.
No, I consider those to be triggers. So I can imagine that the Me Too movement, I know that a lot of people got triggered by that. And I know for some people that they felt supported and like, wow, I can finally come out and talk about it. So there was a lot of good things that came from that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't still move in that direction. So then the emotional detox philosophy, you feel first and then you speak. So a lot of what's happening is people are getting triggered and they're acting or they're reacting. They're going on social media and making an announcement, or they're, whatever they're doing. And they're missing the feeling part. So reactions are part of the pattern. And if we really want to clear the patterns that all of these acts are based on trauma, then we have to feel the feelings. So I'm not telling people not to do something different. I'm saying feel first and then speak if necessary, because we lose sight of the fact that when we fully process a feeling, the energy changes and the pattern is no longer the same. And you have to trust that that is making a huge contribution to the world. And yes. So I would say to that woman, so as far as love, yes, it's transformed into love when you feel it And then you come from a place. I really learned how to do that. And I feel like hopefully my intention was to be an illustration. My Emotional Detox, the core book, when I wrote Emotional Detox and I was coming out of that emotional trauma that I went through very deep betrayal. I mean, extremely awful stuff. And I had to learn to love, to tap into love and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that book is a real great way to not just tell people how to do it, but it shows an illustration in the way that I tell that story, because it's really all about love, pure unconditional love.
And I love that you put forgiveness in there too. And I think for me personally, that's been years and years and years of work that I've had to do, coming out of a relationship where there was deep, deep betrayal. And there were other layers on it as well. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was so many kind of other ancillary things that were going on. And I love, and I'm clear on it now. Thank you for the explanation. It's super helpful. I'm curious about the process of feeling your feelings. What do you have to say about, because I've heard some people say the best way for me to process my feelings is to sort of go inward and get really quiet, and I need some time and space to do that. I, on the other hand, am a person who I feel like I process my feelings through talking about them. Like I don't even know what's going on until I either write about it or I say things out loud. So I'm curious about your expertise on that. Like, is it based on your personality? Is it based on just random, whatever's going on in their life? What does that look like?
I think it's what you're asking. The way we could frame this is, how do you know when you've processed a feeling?
Exactly. You asked it better than I did. How do you know that you're doing it? I don't know if correct is the right way. How do you know you're doing it effectively? I think is also what I want to know.
Because you're right. I mean, there isn't one way and there isn't a right or a wrong way to do it. I'm offering 7 steps for that, and they build on each other. That's why there's 7, and they work seamlessly together. But what I hear you saying is you're already aware when you've processed, and how do we know? So we know because we feel grounded, we feel centered, we feel safe, we feel calm, and we feel connected and content. And notice I didn't say positive, because I think sometimes people expect to just be like, oh, I'm going to be this. Yeah. And that's actually, I find people get very just, wow, I just feel happy with the way things are, kind of thing. I don't need to change or fix or live up to anything. I can just be me. And I think that's the best part. You just feel like, wow, I'm me, I'm myself, and I feel so good in that space.
That feels amazing. Like, I want to sign up for that. Where do I give you all my money? Yes. Okay. Emotional detox and emotional detox for anxiety. Again, the links are in the show notes, everybody. Those are the 2 that I think people would be the most interested in. All right, let's move into, you mentioned positivity and happiness. So I know that you often talk about activating joy, and that's the A in your cleanse system.
Yes.
So can you say more about that, and how can that be done?
Yeah. So the way the formula works is it starts with that C and the clear reactivity, and then the looking inward is the L, and then the E is emit, and that's the transformation of the energy. That's when the current starts to kick in. And then the A, once you get that current of vibration happening, that really opens up your ability to visualize and imagine and feel what it is that you are creating. And so when we're in reactivity, we don't have that. Have you ever noticed that, Andrea? Like when we're in reactivity, we we can't see the big picture. We can't
completely closed off.
Yeah, you get blocked. You can't see it. All you see is what's going wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your faults and all you hear. So,
I always see the other person's faults, really not my own.
Oh, interesting.
Who can I blame?
Yeah, I get it. I've been there too, and sometimes I can slide there. I mean, there's no perfect, but the more I cleanse, the more I become aware of it. So yeah, the A is really, once you go through those first steps, you're basically set up in a way where you're able to now open up and you see it's basically a new perspective. Mm-hmm. And as that perspective, it's really quite magical, the cleanse. What I have learned is that there's aspects in ourselves that are looking to be developed, and they're often the opposite of how we've been reacting.
Yeah.
And that it's like they're just looking to blossom through us. And that A is when that realization comes to be, and you're like, wow, this is looking to emerge through me, confidence and love and empowerment. This is looking to come through now. And so now that's why these steps go in order. And then after that, you're moving into this surrender space, which, you follow the A and then the N, and surrender is, can I allow this? Can I choose? Really? I mean, it's like the universe saying, honey, it's all right here. You can see it. It's here. You can feel it. You can touch it. Now you, my friend, you have to choose it. You have to allow it, because this is your free will and your gift. And that's the surrender step.
Okay. I'm excited to talk about surrender, because it's like one of my favorite topics of many in personal development. But I'm having this question that's kind of like tapping me on the shoulder, because I think there's so many people who can kind of identify as this type of person. I have a decent amount of listeners who, and I know this because I am doing research for my own book, who have really spent a lot of time numbing out, checking out. It's become sort of their go-to as a way to avoid feeling what they probably think are negative feelings. Mm-hmm. And do you get people who come to you to work with you who have been in that place?
Yeah.
And if you do, where would you start with them? So like, these are the people who are pretty disconnected from their own feelings, from their own bodies.
Yeah, I do. I do. And I've had, I also have training I have a psychology background, and thank God, there are moments where I'm like, thank God I have this background, because, I've had some really scary people that are suicidal, and people who are depression. And what's amazing is when we go through the cleanse, and then they get in touch with themselves, and we start to make progress on, okay, it's time for you to get some help, right? And start to sort of accept. It's always fascinating to me how people's addictions start to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And
say more about that. Like, what kind of addictions?
Addicted to smoking pot, to drinking.
So really anything.
Okay. Anything. And food.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is just another form of suppression. It's a way that they've learned how to manage and press down what they feel and numb, like you said, those emotions, and cope. And now we're learning that did not serve us. And there's just so much, like you said, when you cleanse, I agree with you that you don't just heal it for yourself. You heal it for your family line. You heal it for your children. You heal it for society.
It's a lot to carry sometimes. That's like that just came to me as you were saying all of that. And I was thinking about my own experience.
See, that's something I would throw in a cleanse.
Okay, say more.
That, what you just said, I would a lot to carry that belief system. And
yeah, which I don't think I should have followed that up with I don't think it's anyone's responsibility to carry, but it can feel like a lot to carry. Do you know what I mean? Like when your eyes first open up to what's actually happening.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that is an opportunity to cleanse it. And that's how the more you cleanse, the more you start to pick up on, oh my gosh, have I heard myself say this a few times now? Do I say it's a lot? And I mean, Andrea, you're doing a lot for the world. I just want to acknowledge you and for women. And, I really admire your work and your dedication. So it can feel that way, but I think that if we hear ourselves repeat something, that is an indication that you have some emotions coming up that are looking to be healed to support you in this journey, no matter what your journey is. So I say, listen up for those little repetitions, stick them in the cleanse, because you're going to get some energy from that. And once you get some energy, because you get energy when you process the emotions. And when I speak energy, I'm speaking vibration. I'm speaking an elevated consciousness. The universe is trying to help you. They're saying, let's blow the doors off this puppy. And let's, because I'm going to be honest with you, I also channel. I do.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. A lot of people.
Is it always the same energy, or is it
I'm
multiple?
starting to channel with you right now. And I just start getting information and so when you hear that, I'm just saying I would take advantage of that, because when you digest that statement and you feel the emotions around that, you're going to get energy and you're going to blow the freaking doors off whatever you're creating.
Okay, stop it.
Okay.
Hold it right there.
I'm just giving you a little reading.
Okay. Selfishly, we are turning this podcast. We're taking a right turn down Andrea's personal session with Sherianna.
When you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you, now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father, daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms Podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
No, I think it'll be helpful for people because what I was thinking when we were saying that is yes. I mean, I think kind of what you're getting at is I need to do my own work around this, and I'm currently doing it. I don't know if that's what you were sniffing out. And what's also interesting is that when I first realized that I was carrying, I've known for a long time that I've had a core belief that I am responsible for everyone's feelings. I think that's pretty common, especially with women.
Yeah.
And I especially felt that. I remember being in my 20s and my therapist saying multiple times in her office saying, Andrea, you are not responsible for your father's feelings. My father struggled with depression and anxiety. And I felt the need to caretake for his feelings. I think a lot of, especially women, struggle with that. So my point is that when I sort of realized that I had healing to do around this, and that it wasn't just my own, at first I was angry because I was like, fuck all y'all. Y'all need to be doing your work. Why do I have to, I have to do everything around here, like the total mom thing. And then I got through that and was like, okay, it's for me. It's not always just, about doing the work for other people. It's for me. But I reached this point and it was sort of like the edge where I had tremendous fear of opening it up because it was that whole, if I open up Pandora's box, I don't know if I'm ever going to stop crying. And I think that's common that when women come to this work and realize sort of their eyes open up okay, I need to do this work. Maybe they're listening to the show and they're like, I'm going to go to Amazon and buy your book or whatever. And then they read the book or they listen to more of your podcast and they're like, oh shit. Then they sort of stop. And I call that the point of no return where you're in, but you're not really in.
Yeah.
You have the awareness and you are pretty scared about what you're going to find out, what you're going to uncover. And it's a matter of self-trust.
Yeah.
Do I trust myself enough that I can walk through this fire and be okay on the other end? I mean, because you and I can sit here and tell all the listeners, yes, you're going to be okay. And you're going to be even more courageous and more confident on the other side, having gone through that. But it's easy for us to tell people before they experience. So what do you tell your clients in those moments of tremendous fear when they have so much, just for some it's terror about what they're going to walk into?
Yeah. So the way in the emotional detox perspective is you always cleanse what's coming up in the now. And what I mean by that is you could trail off into the future, the fear, but I always say, take a little pressure off yourself and just focus on the small things that are coming up day to day and put that into the cleanse. So what I mean by that is, so something small that triggers you, I don't know, just something little, maybe someone says something a certain way and you didn't like the way their tone of voice made you feel, or a comment. Use those little moments where you get a little annoyed or irritated or you get a little charged by it, and put those little things into the cleanse. Don't go for the kid, the whole big
so we
thing.
don't have to think about our thousands of ancestors that came before us and all of their trauma.
Exactly. We don't need to, but here's the other thing. It doesn't mean we're not tackling that when we go to the now. So go to closest. So I always say to my clients, what's come up for you even today? So even if I asked you today, Andrea, and I said, okay, what was most pressing on your mind today? Like one thing that is, you can't really get out of your head, or that might be bothering you, or that you're just, it can be anything. It doesn't even have to be bothering you, but it's just kind of a little bit loud today. What would you say? I know it's early.
I know I can't say anything today because you're my first call and it's like first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
But I think just worry. I mean, we're recording this in, what is it, late May. We're in a global pandemic and I'm worried about the world at large. I'm worried about people being evicted from their homes. I'm worried mostly to bring it on a personal level. I'm worried about making a choice. We might be changing schools for one of my kids, and I'm worried that I'm making a wrong choice.
Okay. So, wow, you wake up with some big stuff.
Just the future of my child.
Just a little pressure on yourself there, right? The whole world. So
Oh, yeah.
So
there's like, the headline of people being evicted. And I'm like, stuff about race. So like all these, it's just awful.
If that's your experience, that's your experience. I'm not going to tell you to change your experience. I'm going to say, okay, if that's what you wake up with, then that's what you cleanse. Then you would move through those 7 steps and you would say, okay, this is something that's on my mind quite a bit. It keeps coming back. And there's something that when you process your feelings around this, that you're going to get a tremendous amount of energy. And it won't, maybe it's pressing because when you get that energy and contribute to the planet, maybe it's going to serve the planet in tremendous ways. How do you not know that the divine isn't working through you, which that is happening, of course, happening with everybody. All of us. Yeah, all of us are vehicles of transformation. And it's just a matter of whether we're going to listen and tune in and treat your bodies and your breath as a conduit.
Yeah.
Right?
I need to read Return to Love again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
If anyone that doesn't know, it's Marianne Williamson. I read it a while ago and I highlighted so much of it. It's pretty, I don't know if heavy is the right word. It's rich. It's almost decadent to the point, like fudge, like fudges. And you're like, I personally can only have like a little bit before I'm like, oh, it's a lot. That's how I feel about that book.
Yeah. So in other words, we take what's happening in the moment. If it's on your brain, you're already in a trigger. If you're thinking, one of the signs of triggers is chronic thinking, which is also happens to be the symptom of
listening struggles with that. We are team overthinkers.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever you're overthinking needs to be cleansed, and then if you still need to think about it and attend to it, by all means, go for it. But very often what happens once you feel the feelings around it, you give yourself some space and you realize, you know what? I'm really okay letting this roll out and trusting that it will all work out the way it needs to work out. Right? Sometimes we interfere with our own emotional processing very often with overthinking. We're interfering, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to circle around and ask you about surrender. And the topic of surrender came really under the microscope for me in 2016 when my father died. I had never lost anyone before. I had never experienced that level of grief. And I think before it happened, I had always tried to prepare myself. Like, this is how you do grief. And I had heard people talk about it and sort of daydreamed about what it would look like for me. I know that seems like a weird word, but I wanted to plan. It's like any way I can control this, I want to do it. And then it happened and it was like, the universe thought that was hilarious that I tried to like prepare myself for it. And anyway, surrender became something that I dove into as a process, not just a feeling or a quick experience or anything like that. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about surrender.
Well, I don't think it's the same as letting go.
No, I don't either.
And I think letting go, when you tell yourself, at least for me, when I say, oh, just let it go, or someone else says to me, just let it go, I don't really feel that works. I feel it, if anything, it interrupts emotional processing. I talk about it in Emotional Detox, and then I replace it with the word surrender. I find surrender has more movement, has more energetic vibration, and it feels more natural. And there's a relief to it. There's on the other side of surrender is trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and I'm going to say again, that's what's looking to be emerged in you is trust.
I think that's been the key component in learning to process my own feelings and emotions and experiences is trust. A couple of things. Trust that I can handle it, that I was born for this. I was literally made for difficult things to happen and to be able to walk through them and have it become the building blocks of who I am as a human being, who I am as a woman. That part of trust for sure. Also, that I can use the experience and have clarity for it to sort of pave the way in my future experiences and the work that I do here, as well as a parent and a friend and a wife and all of those things. But then also trusting that, I kind of go back and forth. I'm curious what you think. Like, I'm trusting that and really believing that the whole, like, everything happens for a reason and things like that. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, there are some shitty things that happen, and it feels like spiritual bypassing to tell someone that whose child died, hard death, that everything happens for a reason. Because I'm sorry, if that happened to me, I'd be like, you can go fuck yourself with honestly, no. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, lost my train of thought there, but in regards to trust, just trusting mostly, I think the bottom line of it is that hard times can be in service to us.
Yeah. I mean, when you were just sharing that, I agree with you. That statement, everything happens for a reason. I think people say that, Andrea, because I think that's the way that they're dealing with and coping with their own emotions. It's not the other person. It's not about the person they're trying to be sympathetic to. It's about them. That is the way that they put a halt to having an experience with their own feelings. They say everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
It's it's a management thing. It's about them, right? And I know, and it can be insulting to another person, but I always say again, the emotional detox perspective says, if you're the one who gets triggered, then you're the one who needs to cleanse. Even if the other person was an asshole or said something stupid, it's your responsibility to cleanse. So the other thing about trust, which is interesting, we can talk about trust. That's an interesting topic. We all understand that everyone is looking to develop that quality that in themselves. And what I say is what's coming up is cleansing the fear of mistrust or distrust.
Okay. I like that perspective. It feels a little bit an easier entry point.
Yeah.
Then let's walk into trust when you've spent a lifetime of mistrusting. Can't wait.
That's what's coming up.
Okay.
The fear of distrust or mistrust.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you on again and dive into that, because I feel like that's a whole conversation. I love the topic of trust. It's when I redid my values, my core values, I think it was last year, that was one of them that I put on there that I had never had before. And I found it interesting that it just was something that was important in my life at the moment to learn how to walk into that. But I love your perspective as well. So I'm just going to flip through for people. The acronym CLEANSE, the 7 steps include clear, look inward, emit, activate joy, nourish, surrender, and ease. I feel like I need to have you on again so we can talk more about those steps.
Sure.
And I know that they're out of order and everything, but everyone can go over to wherever books are sold, Amazon, Emotional Detox for Anxiety, as well as Emotional Detox and your many other books, Sheriannaboyle.com. All those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. This has been such a pleasure.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Everyone, you know how much I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful. And until next time, everyone, I will see you all out in cyberspace. Bye-bye.
It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. 2 moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck.
And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone.
Poof. Bye.
See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working, and impending doom had in fact impended.
Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talked to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders.
And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative.
We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together.
Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars,
world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk.
And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly.
You're not going to want to miss an episode.
Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks.
Unsticking